And going back to what I said earlier, the inquiry is not established primarily to find fault. But what happens is that when witnesses are being examined under the spotlight of public attention, front page news, the media, understandably, focus on fault. And what happens before a commissioner has made any findings at all, you're in the middle of a process, you find that there is attention being paid to the evidence that's called that can be very negative, and it's attention, I can assure you, I've been involved in the justice system all my professional life. There's more attention in a public inquiry than almost any trial, criminal or civil, that I've seen. It's that much. So that people who may find themselves caught up in a public inquiry and perhaps having made some mistakes, find themselves, instead of, if they're going to be in the newspaper at all, being at the back page of the second edition, find themselves on the front page. Now, I'm not sure how one deals with that, other than to say that in inquiries we conducted, I'm not sure it was completely successful. In fact, it probably wasn't. We did our best in terms of examining witnesses and how the inquiry was conducted to be as fair as we possibly could. Nonetheless, commission counsel or commissioners do not control what is reported in the newspapers or on the television media. So that I'm not sure there is a complete answer to that, but those are some of my thoughts on the pros and cons of public inquiries. Let me turn to one last issue before I sit down, and that's the issue of sitting judges serving as commissioners of public inquiries. This is becoming a matter of some public debate in Canada, interesting academic debate, but also lately some other debate as well. And I start out by saying that conducting a public inquiry or a commission of inquiry is not part of the judicial role. We have the three branches of government. A commission of inquiry is established by the executive branch of government. And so that a judge in his or her normal duties, it does not fall within that. And what happens is the executive branch of government then approaches the judiciary and says, we would like to have a judge conduct a public inquiry. It's a request. There are, with a few exceptions, there is no obligation upon a judge or the judiciary to turn over a judge. And there's two comments I'd make about whether or not judges should do this. The first is, I don't argue against, in some circumstances, sitting judges conducting public inquiries. But I think the first criteria from the judge's standpoint, not from the executive standpoint, but from the judiciary standpoint, is that it should be seen to be a matter of such public importance and public interest, and viewed as a matter that a sitting judge can make a difference because of the credibility of the judicial office. That there will be that value added to it, that it crosses the line that the first test, I would say, then that a sitting judge should be available to do it. So that I guess put another way is that you would not have a sitting judge do it if it was seen to be something that was of more of a perhaps partisan or political nature, rather something, and not that wouldn't necessarily be of a deep public interest, but something where there's really a serious issue of public concern. And the process that happens is when the government wants to appoint a judge to do it, the government approaches the Chief Justice of the court in which the judge sits, and there's a discussion. And I must say my experience in the two inquiries I did is the governments in both instances were extremely respectful, extremely cooperative, and had a very positive discussion with my then Chief Justice, was Chief Justice McMurtry, but had a very positive discussion with him about whether or not these were appropriate inquiries for a judge. The second criteria I think that should come into play, and this I think cannot be overstated, is that a sitting judge should not conduct a commission of inquiry if there is any serious concern about it affecting the independence of the judge or the independence of the judiciary. If there's any concern, serious concern, that because of the nature of the inquiry, that the judge could, whether it be lost his or her independence, but it would be perceived to, because it's such a divisive or sort of politically charged issue, that there would be a concern that the public may perceive the outcome to have been one that was either politically motivated or not independently arrived at. And the reason I raise that is because, as actually was mentioned earlier tonight, the independence of the judiciary is really one of the bedrocks of our democracy. And we in the judiciary, I think, should have to fiercely defend that, and we should not undertake any tasks that could not just could impair the perception of the individual judge or the judiciary overall. So that what I advocate is that when the request for a sitting judge is made by government, that there be a careful analysis on both sides, both by the government and by the Chief Justice and the judge being requested, as best they can to judge if there's any threat to the impairment of the principle of judicial independence. That said, I think that sitting judges, because of the credibility of their role on some issues, have in the past, not speaking of myself, but have in the past and can in the future make a significant contribution to the public good by serving in this role. And we as Canadians, for whatever reason, I won't go into that, but we as Canadians seem to really have a strong bent for using this type of vehicle for resolving and dealing with a number of issues. And just in closing, on a personal note, my own observation, having had the honor of being asked to conduct 2 public inquiries, is that I found in both instances that they were extremely rewarding. They were hard work, no question about that, but extremely rewarding and satisfying, and something that I considered a great privilege to have been involved in. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Your Honor. And I'd now like to call on the Attorney General and Minister Bentley and also Mobeen Khaja to come up to make the presentation. Oh, yes, and also the executives of APMO, if the executive can come up here as well.
The second, he's the boss.
Okay.
They never tell you when they invite you to come to this dinner and get an award that you need to bring a wheelbarrow. to take home.